Keep your goals high. Like, don't settle for mediocrity. Aim for something that you think you cannot achieve. Basically, like you said, United Nations, put it out there. There's always possibilities out there, and if you prepare yourself for them.
Hi, thank you for coming today for the podcast. I'm Julie. I'm from France. I'm a public relation intern here at DIM. I'm studying in the UK, basically international relations. And we have Nicole Durler-Montant, I hope that's how it's
Yes.
pronounced, with us today. So welcome. Could you present yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So my name is Nicole Durler-Montant. Montant is my new, because I just recently got married. So that's my French husband's last name. Yeah, so currently I'm in Paris and France as well, just like you, Julie. But I actually was born in El Salvador. And at 8 years old, I moved to the US for the first time. So I grew up, I lived about 8 years in California, and then I moved to Miami. And then I ended up living also in Orlando, where I finished high school. So after I finished high school, I tried to obtain a scholarship, and thankfully I got it, and it was to learn Chinese. And I moved to Taiwan to go study Chinese when I was 18. So it was a 1 year scholarship, and when I went there, I absolutely loved it. I loved, getting to know the culture, learning the language, and discovering, something so completely different. Was really enriching. It was a really enriching experience. So I decided to explore my opportunities to study there, and I found that they were actually launching a new major in an international university there, that was international affairs and diplomacy. And it was exactly what I wanted to study. So I decided to try it out. And thankfully, it was an English program, because my Chinese was obviously not at the level after 1 year to completely do a whole study program in Chinese. But I was there for 3 years, for my bachelor's, and it was a 1 year exchange student program where I went to Strasbourg in France as well. And that's pretty much my journey for after high school, and entering to the bachelor's degree. So basically, after I finished my bachelor's, I was, a little bit, I think it happens to a lot of us, that we're like, okay, we all have the dream of going to the UN, but how do we get there, right? So there was a part that I skipped. So in these 4 years, actually, something that I identified at an early stage was a key to success, which is something is why I have agreed to participate in this podcast. It's internships. Really, that is such a key. Basically, you're gonna find out that is how right now I have made it, because I put a lot of effort and a lot of I set my goals directly to interning. And I did an internship first in Strasbourg when I was in there's the Parliament, European Parliament, and the Council of Europe. And I did an internship in the Council of Europe first. And then when since I was already in France, I wanted to take advantage of that opportunity to be in like international organizations, multilateral organizations. And I landed an internship in the El Salvador mission to UNESCO, actually. So it's where I am currently working now. But so that's where I want you to realize that it's the link. I started as an intern, and it was in a summer internship. It was really not that long, but I think when you do a great job, and it takes seconds for a hiring manager, a superior, to identify your motivation and your will to really succeed. So basically, that's how that was after my bachelor's. I moved back to El Salvador. I realized I wanted to spend some time there, since I had been a lot of time in the States, but I was still kind of trying to come together with my identity, since I had been living the 4 years in Taiwan. Then I started being like, what am I? And I realized that I'm, a bit of everywhere, a bit of everything, a little bit of everywhere that you go to. You have to pick up the good things and really, learn the good practices in every place you visit and every conversation you have. So that was very enriching to me. So I was in El Salvador, and that's when I kind of just said, well, I want to help. I want to help this country. I want to help my country. I want to see where I can put in all my knowledge that I've already obtained abroad. I don't know if it's enough. You never know if it's enough, but you say, let's give it a shot. So I kind of send it's a spontaneous candidature. That's why you call it in France. I'm not sure. It's a concept of basically kind of just throwing yourself out there to the organization saying, hey, I'm available in case you guys are needing any kind of application, any kind of person fitting this profile. And that's how I got, I got a call back and saying that they were interested in having me as an intern. So I joined the Minister of Foreign Affairs as an intern for foreign policy. And I was dealing with, the dossier on foreign policy and a lot of learning about, well, I was learning, but, they were already working in some multilateral treaties and different sort of agreements in between the US and El Salvador, and a lot of interesting things. And after that, I was there for about 6 months, and I got a call from the ambassador who was my boss in that internship and said, like, where are you? Are you still available? Did you finish your studies? And I said, yeah. She's like, look, I'm looking for someone with your profile, and there's no one in the ministry that has everything that I need. And they have given me the opportunity to present a candidate. Of course, there's going to be other candidates, but at least, let's give it a shot. And well, they gave it a shot. She gave it a shot with me. She believed in me. And basically, it all worked out. I mean, I'm not saying that this is, it was easy. Of course, I'm skipping through all the hardships that you have to go through that, but I'm telling you guys the positive things. So to tell you a bit, that it is possible. It is possible. And the conclusion is that you did it, right? So basically, I've been here for the past 4 years. I have, I was there from the beginning. I've been a counselor to the ambassador, but for the past year, I have led the delegation. There was a, change of government, and now I currently have the lead. However, it's just interim because I obviously don't have yet the experience to be ambassador, but for the moment I've been leading it, and it's been a really, really challenging and enriching experience. So I gave you my whole introduction to tell you where I am right now, and kind of giving you the platter for you to go ahead and ask all your questions.
That's amazing. That's very impressive, and I'm very, very, very inspired right now. So how did you, so you said that the internships were like what you had to do to basically gain experience. How does the entire internship process work? Because from my own experience, it's quite competitive to get internships for, like, for example, in like foreign ministries or things like that. So how basically you have to prepare for that?
Unfortunately, I don't have the solution, because every organization has different processes, and every country has different systems. And of course, there's some that are more competitive than others. I think something that it really kind of like gave me the extra advantage was my language skills, which is something that now is such a competitive advantage to have. Like, it's such an added value for any organization. So I think, like, when you're competing against people, that are as talented as you, and maybe they have the same amount of knowledge and same amount of experience, but you have an extra language, that for sure gives you, an extra step to being a better qualified candidate, right? So I know that it's very competitive. I have, my my hand was hurting of how many doors I've knocked. You really have to be persistent, but I think the key is determination. If you don't, you don't give up. Like I received so many no's, and a lot of questioning of people, because I think now it's even more popular to do internships. But I think when I started, like, it was in 2011, so basically I was a freshman, sophomore, people were still kind of like, you don't need it, like, maybe when you're in senior year, maybe in your last year. But I think the earlier the better, because every time, every kind of experience that you have, you're adding to your knowledge and to your confidence. So if you're starting that at an early age, that means that when you're a senior, you're going to be, even more prepared. So, there's not a right like recipe for it, because I know it's so super challenging. The best thing I could tell you is just keep going, because wherever you end up is where you had to end up, and it's going to be the right door for you. Because remember that the people that are hiring are experts in their field, so they're going to be hiring the person that is exactly tailored for that position. So you have to, really be conscious of that they're going to identify and really see the value that you could add to the organization.
Well, that's very helpful. Um, about languages, would you say that Chinese is a big plus, like knowing how to speak Chinese?
I think for international relations, it is a big plus, especially in most, UN, all in your UN organizations, Chinese is a working language. So definitely having more than just your usual French and English, if you can add to it, that's of course a plus. I think that also because of the role that Chinese and all the emerging markets have in international relations and politics, and a lot of the topics that we keep hearing about, I think it is a very good asset to have, to really kind of understand behind it. Because this is something that I discovered while I was learning, that actually when you are in the process of learning, your mind is changing. Like, your mind is understanding new things that you wouldn't have understood if it weren't for Chinese. So basically, like, for example, you see a Chinese character, right? You see the lines, but there's a reason for each line. There's an image hidden between, inside of each line. Like, for example, the the character for listen, there's inside of the character, there's the little character that is saying ear and that is saying heart. So basically there's like a very philosophical reference to, when you hear, you have to listen with your heart. These kind of things is like, it's restructuring your brain to understanding is how the Chinese are thinking. And this is, something that I think we all want to really understand, because this is a key matter to for everything, for business, for world peace, for any kind of thing. We always want to understand how the other one is thinking. Why do they have that point of view? And through language, it kind of just like shapes your whole brain to understand a deeper concept. So for sure, Chinese is a big plus.
Okay, well, that's very helpful because I have so like the French, English, some Spanish, but I was always asking myself, is it worth learning Chinese? Because a lot of people are telling me like, it's fine, English is the main language, you don't really need it. Chinese is very complicated, but I had always this thought in my mind, so that's very helpful. Staying on the Chinese side, do you see a lot of Chinese influence, or like influence about the sort of like competition there is between China and the US in El Salvador?
We are very, very close geographically to the US. So we have, of course, a lot more influenced by the US, you know, in our food, in our culture, in our, you know, our fashion and etc., right? But of course, like actually there was a change in El Salvador, because before, when I went to Taiwan, it was because El Salvador recognized Taiwan as a country. You know, that there's the rule banning that you could recognize both. You have to choose whether Taiwan or China. You cannot have relations with both. Well, diplomatic relations, right? You can have commercial relations. So basically, El Salvador actually broke ties with Taiwan about 2.5 years ago, and we have reoriented our diplomatic relations with China. So for, like, you see an increasing presence of Chinese in El Salvador now due to that. They have been like collaborating a lot with the vaccine for the COVID. Basically, half of all the vaccines that we've received have been donations from the Chinese government. So, you know, there is a lot of you know, this vaccine diplomacy that we're calling it, or there is a lot of more presence that is seen, definitely increasing in these last few years.
Well, that's very interesting, because I'm actually doing preparing my dissertation of end of bachelor on the US
Oh,
and China. So I'm analyzing everything that is related, and Taiwan is a big major point
yeah,
between the two. So that's a very good, interesting points there. So thank you.
great.
Um, Going a little bit back to the topic of studying, doing internships, finding your voice, how and when did you knew who you were and what was your path?
So that's a great question, Julie. To be honest, I think that's a question that, even when you seem like you know exactly where you are and who you are, you're still asking yourself questions. So basically, because we're constantly, you know, going through an evolution within ourselves due to our new experiences that we're encountering. But I think that a very key part is really kind of taking a moment to realize, what do you want, where do you see yourself, you know, kind of like envisioning yourself to be able to have a structure in your path. So that for me was like a key part to knowing where my voice was, to finding my voice, right? So I said, okay, where do I want, what do I want to do? So I said, basically, you know, I want to create impact, I want to help, I want to use what I've learned to contribute to solutions, to find innovative strategies to make, you know, the world better. And I think when you have, even if it's broad, like at least you have a direction, and that for sure, you know, kind of helps you really structure, because even if it's your professional life, it's also your personal life, right? Because you cannot be like trying to do good here and then in your personal life doing the contrary. So it kind of becomes who you are. You have this within you, you have this like need to be looking for ways to contribute to society, right? So I think like having a key direction is very important to you know, to find your path.
Yeah, it actually makes sense. And talking about personal life, how did you, while you were studying and even now, how do you manage to really let things that are work at work and not let them go onto your personal life?
So this question, I think there's an answer before COVID and after COVID, right? Because a lot has changed for diplomacy and multilateral organizations. Well, as for the world, right? We've all had to readapt to the new conditions, but I think that our field has kind of suffered. I mean, this is for sure just my input of my perspective. I haven't even discussed it much with colleagues, but it definitely has, you know, minimize the possibility to have the direct contact with people. So I think like you know, diplomacy, we were making it in the hall, we were walking, you know, representing something, we were having exchanges while drinking our coffee, and this was like it was very healthy, because you were having the space to be, you know, in a informal setting, in a professional within a professional area, and I think like in those times, like how it was back then, it was a lot easier, to really make the cut of, I'm this at work, and then I don't want to bring it back home. This is obviously a lot easier said than done, because when it comes to it, going back to what I just previously said, personal life and private life, professional life and personal life, you're still one person, right? So you can't literally just press a button and shut down. But I think like what is really helpful, that has for me, it really was a key in having the division, was looking for friendships outside of work. Because if you're me, I mean, I don't have anything against my colleagues, but the point is that you're still talking about work one day, or you're still constantly bringing up topics. And maybe because they're representing other countries, there is like a slight reservation for what you can talk about, because you're still kind of like, I don't know how much I can say, because it's still, even if it's an informal setting. So like that was something for me that was really important. But because I do have this kind of outgoing personality, it was easier for me to look for friends, find friends. And the time that I lived in Taiwan, I had the great opportunity of traveling, and this allowed me to meet a lot of people around. Like, so basically, contacting the friends of friends who might have been in Paris one time to give me advice on something, on a restaurant, or to introduce me to a friend. So being constantly on the lookout to have kind of like a social life setting completely outside of your work space, and then having your work setting, and then trying to fit just that into work, and life and personal life. At one point they will merge, it's inevitable, because you'll realize that you have really deep connections with some colleagues, and then you'll bring them into the personal life. It can happen. But I think like globally it's best to have this kind of division, so that it's mentally like possible for you to make that distinction.
Yeah, that's a great advice, because I'm still at university obviously, but sometimes I see it's hard to, only at my level, to make the difference between what I'm
Yeah.
studying and when I have to just enjoy and spend some free time with my friends or something. So that's really something I'm gonna think about.
Right.
Um, Thinking about the networking side of things, do you network a lot? How this like environment, this work works? Do you have to network a lot, or it's more something that comes with it?
So yeah, for this question, I think like the networking, right? It's every day, right? Like you go outside of your door, and you might run into someone that owns a company of something that you're interested in, and then you see that they have like a sticker, and then you're said, oh, maybe I should go ahead and ask. And it's, you have to seek those opportunities, you have to be on the lookout for them, because it's very important to take them. I think every person you meet could be an expansion of your network. That's how I see it. And that's what has actually helped, because I know that, for example, if somebody's asking me about a certain topic, I'm like, okay, maybe this person had nothing to do with my field, but I know that they develop apps for shoes companies. And I'm like, oh, I have a friend that does that, and then I link them. And then I'm helping expand the network. But of course that's also with my personality of wanting to help and contribute, so I put people together. But I think it is very important to have always that in mind, to know that in any kind of conversation there is something that you can learn from the person, and there's something that maybe you can provide and help that person. So it goes both ways. What I did while I was in Taiwan, I did join a lot of like internations, kind of like these expat working groups. It was a lot easier in that setting, because you're a foreigner, so there's like specific places for foreigners where we can exchange. Of course, it's not limited to, it's not against the locals, but it was just like a different like kind of platform to be able to exchange. But currently, as I said, it's on a daily habit kind of thing. You go to the supermarket and you find ways to kind of, interact with people. I obviously know it's not easy to just go up to someone, and into the supermarket line, but there's, I think we have like a conception, like a perception that people are a lot closer than we think. But I think especially after the pandemic, we're all kind of in the need to be more social and to kind of like, reconnect, have connections with people. And this is something that, before maybe people were just so busy, but we literally were all put in this fine line of being still and alone. I mean, of course, there was people with roommates and whatnot, but you're still limited to being social, and this is against our human nature. So I think like we can take advantage of this opportunity that people want to, meet new people. There was a whole year that we couldn't make new acquaintances. So, go out there and kind of see what you can offer and see what you can be offered about in your professional life.
And so I would say, I suppose that networking starts in university, I would say, with like people you meet.
Yeah, definitely.
And jumping on this, do you think, for example, like being part of a society or doing extracurricular activities while being at university helps a lot, that is on your personal life of like just networking with people, and also for the CV and like internships applications and things like that?
For sure. Any kind of opportunity that you have to connect with people is an opportunity to have an expanded network, an opportunity that could build into an internship or a new job. It's like I realized I have an example. It's a funny setting because it's very French setting. In France, it's not only a stereotype. A lot of people smoke. Right? So here they have, what we would call it, or in the US, maybe just like a coffee break or like a snack break or something. Here they have their cigarette break. And basically, this was something that I learned in my first internship. I didn't smoke, right? And there was like, everyone's like, okay, you want to smoke? I'm like, no, I don't smoke. And then they would come back with all these new stories and all these new, like a lot of new interesting things, that the boss said this, that the colleague said that we're going to do a new project. And I'm like, how come I'm not in this? How come I don't know anything? And they're like, oh, because you don't smoke. I'm like, what? So basically, like, what I want to say is that in any kind of small activity, there's possibility for exchange that it could be enriching. I'm not saying go smoke, like, but at least like I would say, okay, you know what? I'm not smoking, but I'm going to go with you and I'm just going to sit there and watch you guys smoke so I could be in the loop. Because if not, you have to put yourself out there constantly, whether it's extracurricular activities, whether it's pretending that you smoke so that you can be included in the conversation, whatever it is, it's helpful because when you connect with people, beautiful things can happen.
No, that's it's true that the cigarette break is very French and a stereotype, but it's completely true. And because I don't smoke either, like I'm definitely gonna go with them during the breaks.
Yeah, you don't have to. I mean, it's also not good to secondhand smoke, but I mean,
yeah,
at least you're not putting it directly.
So going back a little bit to like studying and everything, do you think that doing a master change a lot, or it actually doesn't change that much to the addition of everything?
I think now in this competitive environment that we live in, yes. Because I do believe in education, not because of, because I have this diploma, but because of always like continuing to learn. So I think any kind of opportunity for you to develop, to really, grow, it's gonna give you more advantage to whatever you want to do after, right? Because you're bringing the knowledge with you. But in regarding to that, I can tell you something. Actually, I had the opportunity after finishing my bachelor's to whether take a break and work and look for something in my field, or directly jump into my master's degree. And I chose to take that break before doing my master's degree. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way. It's just kind of like a personal choice and seeing how you want to go on about it. I know that specifically in Europe, they go directly into master, so it's like a continuous program. For me, I really enjoyed the fact that I had the time to really kind of see what I wanted to specialize myself in. You know, I went into work and then I said, okay, I love international relations. This is great. But, you know, it could have been a different experience. I could have been like, okay, so I love international experience relations, but now I want to understand why people do this. So I want to study psychology, you know, like it could have gone that way too. So you have to like, or for me, I really, really valued that part of kind of just like really being working in action to discover that I wanted to study. You know, specifically me, I studied something in social science. So I kind of like went a little bit to the right or left. You know, I went a little bit on the side of international relations. I didn't do a strictly, you know, political science major, but I did want to, you know, continue to kind of study society as a whole. But it was actually like you couldn't have done that without the base of international affairs to kind of know how societies are shaped and understand history and all of that. And I think especially for you that you're doing even war studies, you know, you're when I read, like when you said war studies, like that's very interesting because you're really like having to analyze the before, the after, the middle, and predict the future, you know. So you basically, that is very, you know, it's very social. It's a very social study that you have to do. And basically that's something that I would say like I could have discovered that I liked after having the time to work first, right? So then that for me, that was the best way to do it. And actually I did my master's degree while being a full-time professional, so I did it all online before the pandemic. So I kind of already knew the whole online education, online meeting experience. But yeah, definitely that was a great decision for me. And I think that for anyone that wants to continue learning, you know, using the tools for growth, masters, and opportunities is always positive.
Okay, well, that's an amazing insight. Um,
I have a quick
and
question, actually. Could I ask something?
Yes.
Okay, so since you are obviously very in this social environment and everything is very communicative based, you ever feel like burnt out from all of the constant interaction, or is there a way that you personally balance things for your own self-care?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think that I almost reached a burnout not long ago. Thankfully, I had my husband to like really like kind of tell me, you know, I'm saying my husband, but it could be, you know, a friend, it could be someone that sees like that picks you up specifically like, hey, you're going downhill. And yeah, I definitely didn't realize the value of self-care up until recently, to be honest. I think it also happened with the pandemic that we were forced to take the pause, and this kind of, you know, made an impact on in reflecting interior, like internally. And you have to figure out like the limits that you have, right? I think i think what you've identified, that I'm constantly giving and exposing and this and that, and it's draining. So definitely the fact that you have specifically pointed this out is very important, because I'm still finding out how to you know, kind of not just completely empty out my glass of water. You know, I'm trying to, you know, keep myself hydrated here, and it's very important. So for now, what I've found is that, you know, kind of like having these moments to sit in and just take a pause and put your life into perspective, like, okay, the world is not going to end if I don't answer that email right now. I'm going to take a 2-minute break, and I'm going to have a coffee, and I'm going to go sit by the window. You know, like, you have to force yourself, because if not, whatever you're giving is actually going to be more harmful than what you're actually saying and what you're trying to contribute with. Like, you really have to pay attention to that for sure. So basically, Brett, I'm still a work in progress. to try to balance that out. I think it's a really, really great question, because I think we all are. I think every profession, it's just really hard to kind of find the way to limit yourself when you say, I think I can still do it. I have energy. I still can. But actually, mentally, you need to watch out. You need to watch out. But I think that's getting better, I must say, because we're talking a lot more about mental health now after being in quarantine. It's being, the conversation has been moving a lot more than before. So I think we're on the good track.
I'm always just curious about how like really hardworking professionals just even keep their sanity. So it's just, I love asking that question and just love to see how people like keep that balance. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah, I still have to even read more about it, because it tells me like, okay, do yoga, but then I'm like, oh my God, I don't even have the strength to get up right now to do yoga. Sometimes I'm like, okay, directly go to work. You turn on, you're like a machine, and it's not good. It's not good to do that. But definitely being aware is the most important part. So definitely, yeah, that would be the most important, that you're not just constantly going robot mode.
That's amazing, because I feel like that is for students or even professionals, like sometimes it's super hard to just take time and say, no, I have work to do, but no, I'm gonna take time and just rest and not feel bad about it. And that's okay. So that's very nice of you to like actually emphasize that we need to take some time for ourselves. So if you had to give, let's say, 3 main tips to young professionals or even students that are going to get their first jobs or internships or things like that, what would you say to them?
Okay, so my first one comes to mind directly when you say first job, first internship. It's a moment that we're all so nervous, right? We're all so scared. We're kind of like doubting. We're like, do I know enough? Why did they choose me? So this is something that I didn't, until after I felt all of that during the internships, know that it's called imposter syndrome. I don't know if you've heard about this concept. So basically, this is something that I want like to give to advice to people that are starting their career. It happens to everyone, this is something that you really have to keep present, and know that even the most successful CEO asks himself like, really, is this what I am? Like, am I really this boss? Like, it's like, why? How did I do it? Because it sometimes, life happens so fast, and then one day or the next, you're the president, and you're like, what? Like, people believed me? What did I say? So you have to really like know that is something that happens, and you have to go through it. You have to feel it. You have to understand it, know that it's something normal, and don't put yourself down. Like, the best advice that I could give you is go through it. Like, keep going, even if you're like, oh my gosh, like but I seriously, I'm not as good as this intern. Like, he speaks 10 languages, I only speak 5. Like, it doesn't matter. You did something else to them to show them that you can do the job, or that you got it specifically chosen for a specific reason, and basically that would be like my first and like global advice. And second advice, keep your goals high. Like, don't settle for mediocrity. Aim for something that that you think you cannot achieve. Basically, like you said, United Nations, put it out there. There's always possibilities out there, and if you prepare yourself for them, if it's the right timing, if you are determined, if you work hard, you have to take all of that with managing a life balance, right? You're not going to just completely be focused on that to achieve them, like we were previously saying. You have to take time for yourself. You have to take pause. You have to put life into perspective and say, okay, right now I'm going to give myself 5 minutes, or a day. It doesn't have to be small amounts of time. It just take as much as you need to kind of get back the strength to continue being in that route. Last one, stay positive. I think that it's sometimes very hard. And I know that people say it all the time, stay positive, but really, like, the fact is that if you just think negative thoughts, or you are very pessimistic about the job opportunities, you're going to attract that. I really, that's how I live by. I know that if I'm going predisposition that this is not going to happen, it's not going to happen, because they're going to feel that off of you. You really have to be confident about every step that you take, believe in it. And if you don't believe in it, that means that you're not sure, that your gut feeling is telling you otherwise. So let it go and focus on something else that you are going to be passionate about. So basically, positivity, passion, listen to your gut, follow all those things. And I'm not saying those are the recipes to success, but these are the things that I practice and that I feel happy to share them with, because it did work for me.
That's amazing. Thank you. And talking about the imposter syndrome, we actually talked about it this morning during one of our morning meetings. So that was the perfect touch to the conversation.
Perfect. Great.
I know, even like when we are still like in this young boat too. So it's like, we're freaking out over like barely even having a lot under our belt. So it's good to know and be self-aware.
For sure. I think just to share with you like exactly how it happened. So for me, when I first started this job, I was ranked. So basically, just to tell you, the ranking, the hierarchy levels for diplomats. So it's ambassador, minister, counselor, first secretary, second secretary, third secretary. And I started as counselor. And I didn't know why. Like I said, how? Like, how is this possible? Can you imagine my syndrome? The level that I had, I said, like, the previous person has like 25 years of experience and I have a higher position than they do. Like, how does that happen? So I'm just saying, like, it will take time, but you grow into it because you have to push through it. And that, for me, it's something I don't share, of course, often. I don't have these platforms to always share, but definitely the fact that you're asking me, I love to put that out there, because it's not easy. It's not easy. Like, I was kind of almost crying myself to sleep. I was like, how is it possible? The people that are in my same position are like 48-year-olds and I'm like 20 something, like, how are they, like, how? But basically, like, that's so good. And that's why I'm like repeating, keep studying about that syndrome. and I'm glad that you guys had an introduction about it this morning, because it's it's how life is. It lines up and everything gets aligned at one point or the other.
So thank you so much for answering all of my questions, because it was a lot. But yeah,
no, they were great questions, Julie. I'm really happy that you took the time to tailor them specifically to our topic. And I really, really enjoyed answering everything.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. Did you want to plug any maybe like socials or anything, like social media for our episode, so we can reach out to you and people can connect with you possibly?
Yeah, sure. My LinkedIn is available. I'm happy to accept and connect with all of you, all of the interns that want to give a shout out to someone that can maybe help. I don't know, but when I have the time, I do answer, and if I can contribute, I'm there.
Thank you so much for joining us and chatting with us. It was really helpful, and I think our interns and our audience listening right now is going to really enjoy this, and we'll definitely have more awesome people coming up next week and the next few weeks, just like Nicole.
Great.
And it was great having you, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.